Welcome to the second video about verbs. Let's continue right away. Let's look at a weak verb ending in de or den. I've chosen for the verb verwaarlosen, to neglect, because there are several mutations necessary to conjugate it correctly to the first or second person singular in past tense. Before we start with the conjugation, I'd like to look at the rules about vowels, like I explained in lesson 2. The pronunciation of a vowel is totally up to its position in the syllable it belongs to. In Dutch we have open and closed syllables. If the syllable ends in a consonant, then it's closed. If it ends in a vowel, then it's open. La is an open syllable. Laat is a closed syllable. In an open syllable, the vowel is pronounced as a long vowel, but represented by a single character. In a closed syllable, the vowel can be pronounced short and long. A short vowel is represented by a single character. A long vowel is represented by two identical characters. Let's take a look at these examples. La is an open syllable with a long vowel. Lot is a closed syllable with a short vowel. Laat is a closed syllable with a long vowel. If the consonant, which closes the syllable with a long vowel sound in it, represented by two identical characters, moves to the second syllable because the pluralization suffix en is added, one of the two identical characters will be crossed off in order to maintain the long vowel. See the example with the pluralization of laat, a form of the verb laten. Here we see the verb verwaarlosen. The verb verwaarlosen. We divide it into syllables with square brackets. The en suffix gets removed. What remains is the stem verwaarloos. But because the original sound of the o was long, because it belonged to an open syllable, we have to add a second o to maintain that sound. Thus an extra o is added, which makes verwaarloos. This is the rudimentary stem. But we need this stem in order to see whether we have to add te or de. It's rudimentary because a z at the end of a syllable or a word is impossible in Dutch. Because the z isn't a letter of the mnemonic device at X-Foxkip, we know we should add de, though now z is at the end, we have to change it into s. The final result is verwaarloosde, or in plural, verwaarloosden. The z cannot be written at the end of a syllable at the end of a word. If the z ends up at the end of a syllable due to crossing of the en suffix, the z will be changed into an s. Of course, the same happens the other way around by adding an en suffix, because an s can be written in front of the en suffix. We've treated now the present tense and the past tense of weak verbs. We also know a past tense of strong verbs. These verbs doesn't end in de, den, or te or ten. The vowel of the verb just changes. Unfortunately, there's no clear set of rules for these verbs. You have to learn them by heart, though there's a rule of the thumb which might be useful. There are about 10 different classes of strong verbs. The abbreviations show you how the vowels in the verb changes in that particular class. Take your time to look closely at the different classes. The only way to determine whether a verb is weak or strong is by a dictionary. Also, on the internet are lots of resources available to check whether a particular verb is strong or weak. If you really don't know whether a verb is strong or weak, then conjugate it like it is weak. A Dutchman will certainly understand you then and most likely correct you. Only a few dictionaries tell you whether the verb is weak or strong, but you may check a few sites to discover. www.vandalen.nl, a well-known Dutch dictionary, might be useful. A second link, www.mijnwoordenboek.nl, a a site which enables you to conjugate Dutch verbs. This online conjugator is 99% accurate. Let's look at the conjugation of the strong verb lijden, which means to suffer, into the third person singular. Okay, here we see the verb lijden. We divide it into syllables with square brackets. The en suffix gets removed. What remains is the stem lijd. Because lijden is a strong verb and it has an I in it, the verb belongs to the first class of strong verbs. Then the I will change into a long E sound in a single and closed syllable represented by two E's. With late, we can make a sentence in the past tense. For example, zij leed intens. She suffered intensely. A schedule which shows us the conjugation of the verb lijden in simple past tense. You can see that the conjugation of a strong verb in the simple past tense is the same for all persons. It only differs when you change the conjugation from singular to plural and vice versa. Let's now take a look at the mixed verbs. Mixed verbs. The last of the three types of regular verbs is the mixed verb. The mixed verb is difficult because there is no clear rule to conjugate them. The only way to master them is to learning them by heart. Mixed verbs can be subdivided into three types. Type 1, which is weak in the simple past and strong in the past participle. Type 2, which is strong in the simple past and weak in the past participle. And type 3, which is weak or strong in the simple past and weak in the past participle. To illustrate how these mixed verbs look like, here an overview of a few very common verbs which happen to be mixed. Okay, I will read the infinitive, the past tense and the past participle. Lachen, lachte, gelachen. Laden, lade, geladen. Vouwen, vouwde, gevouwen. Wassen, waste, gewassen. Zouten, gezouten, gezouten. Type 2. Brengen, bracht, gebracht. Denken, dacht, gedacht. Dunken, docht, gedocht. Kopen, kocht, gekocht. Zoeken, zocht, gezocht. Type 3. Brouwen, brouwde, gebrouwd. Durven, durfde of dorst, gedurfd. If you doubt about a verb being strong or weak, always check the online conjugator on www.mijnwoordenboek.nl or check your dictionary. Now we're going to look at the past participle. But before we start looking at the past participle, we have to learn a few auxiliary verbs to be precisely the most important verbs in almost every natural language, which are to be, to have, and to will, which are in Dutch zijn, hebben, en zullen. We are going to look to an overview of the verbs zijn, hebben, and zullen in both simple present tense and the simple past tense. My advice is that you write these down. You will see them in the third video. Thank you for watching.